October 7th was a setup for a stand down. Even American traitor turned Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard admits it. If you believe Israel is special, you're not a Christian. Israel is small, not special, and certainly not sacred. Israel offers abortion on demand and is totally dependent on U.S. aid. We don't need Israel. Israel needs America. Israel is not the Jewish state. It's just a state. There are Israeli, American, British, and every other country Jews. Judaism is a religion, Zionism a political movement. Per Jesus, Jews are not God's special people. Those who follow him are. When they killed the son, they lost the vineyard. Check out your scripture. Israeli anti-Semitism is a lie. Almost all Israelis are Ashkenazi, not from the Mideast, but Arabs, Palestinians, and Coptic Christians are. Gaza is genocide. The USS Liberty was war. Assassinating Iranian diplomats was treachery. Israel Knesset members forbid U.S. citizenship. American Congress are infested with Israeli dual citizenship. In 2023, an IDF sniper killed 2 Christian women inside the parish. An Israeli tank demolished Mother Teresa's convent for the disabled. Charlie Kirk abandoned the Israeli cause just 48 hours before his murder. You cannot serve 2 masters. Choose. Retired special agent, DIA officer and spy turned whistleblower warrior. Served in sabotage, rejected and redeemed, failed and forgiven, betrayed and saved, rejecting revenge, humbled and blessed, repurposed in redemption, as chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller. Now America's intelligence officer, following God, leading my family, and any that choose to join on our long walk to faith and freedom. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Okay, welcome everybody. I keep getting comments about this interview that Mike Adams had with Patrick Byrne. I haven't seen it. I know Patrick a little bit. I am not a fan. I will talk somewhat about Venezuela today, but I first want to get into the highlights. We win. Trump signs the Epstein Act. And then beyond that, ChatGPT and SYNBIO SYNTISM script. Trump okays CIA ops in Venezuela. FBI, DEA, and Egypt in on Charlie's kill. And ex-IDF ARAMEAN Christian SHADI KHALLOUL may show up. I don't know. I haven't heard back from him. But we have a substantial victory. And I want to celebrate that and make you aware of that. That's really important to do. So we win. Trump signs the Epstein Transparency Act. This is a loss. This is a loss for the party of Pedo Joe. It's a loss for the Rhino Pedo enablers. It's a loss for Trump, who wanted to protect Mossad. It's a loss for Mossad, who controls Trump but could not control America despite massive American Christian Zionism influence. But it is a win for America and Americans who want to return to a virtuous populace, requisite for a republic, just as John Adams said. The pedos, pundits, pimps, politicians, and Praetorians lost, but we won, because this was my and Team America's line in the sand and hill to die on. Well done, Team America. Well done, America. Well done, Massey. This is the inflection point where we begin to return to a godly nation. The Epstein Files Transparency Act was passed yesterday by the 119th United States Congress, signed by President Donald Trump on November 19, 2025. It requires the United States Department of Justice to make publicly available in a searchable and downloadable format all files pertaining to the prosecution of deceased child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. In September 2025, Representative Thomas Massey, who is the hero in this, a member of the Republican Party, filed a discharge petition in support of the bill. On November 12th, the discharge petition received the minimum required 218 signatures needed from 4 Republican representatives and 214 Democratic Party representatives. The House of Representatives voted 427 to 1 to pass the act on November 18th. with one Republican representative, Clay Higgins, casting the lone nay vote. Remember Clay Higgins. During the 2024 presidential election, the Republican nominee and former President Donald Trump, when asked by Rachel Campos Duffy on Fox News in June 2024 whether he would release the Epstein files as president, said, "Yeah, I would." In February 2025, the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi stated in a Fox News interview that the Epstein client list is sitting on my desk right now to review. Later that month, the White House gave binders to several prominent conservatives and right-wing figures, including Liz Wheeler and Scott Presler, reading Epstein Files Phase 1 Declassified. On July 7th, Bondi released a statement saying the DOJ found no incriminating client list, contradicting her February statement. That day, the U.S. Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation announced no further files from the FBI from the Epstein investigation would be released. Bondi's statement and the FBI's drew outrage from conservative figures. On July 11th, reports emerged that Dan Bongino, the deputy director of the FBI, had a heated confrontation with Bondi and was considering resigning. Bongino was later demoted to co-deputy director on September 15th, 2025. On July 12th, Trump defended Bondi and referred to Epstein as somebody that nobody cares about, which of course is a lie. The victims and the victims' families, Virginia Giuffre's family, certainly care. On December 2nd, 2025, the first day the House was back in session, Thomas Massie moved to force the House to vote. So again, a heroic congressman through the discharge petition. Within several days, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, and Marjorie Taylor Greene signed the discharge petition, along with many Democrats. Greene posted to Twitter, "The Epstein rape and pedophile network must be exposed. Release all the information." On November 12th, 2025, Johnson stated, and Johnson is an American Christian Zionist to the core, and of course that's protecting Israel, which is protecting Mossad and Netanyahu and the right-wing Likud government. Politico reported that to anonymous sources, over 100 Republicans were expected to defect and join and sign. On November 16th, Massie commented on the DOJ's new investigation ordered by Trump. The president's been saying this is a hoax. He's been saying that for months. Well, it's now decided to investigate a hoax if it's a hoax. I have another concern about these investigations. If they have ongoing investigations in certain areas, those documents can't be released. So this might be a big smokescreen. It's not might a big smokescreen. It is. Because clearly there was blackmail material here, which means they're investigative material here. But they are going along with protecting all of their political cronies and Mossad, who is behind this. But several hours later, Trump posted on Truth Social, reversing his stance, writing that the House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files. So when he couldn't control the release, he decided to go along with it. On November 17th, Trump said he would sign the bill, but he did not want to take it away from us, Massie responded to Trump, saying, "Looking forward to you attending the signing." Additionally, on that day, Mark Epstein, the brother of Jeffrey, claimed there was an active cover-up to sanitize the files by scrubbing the files to take Republican names out. And he said he had a pretty good source on that. On November 18th, Massie, Khanna, and Greene hosted a press conference with Epstein abuse survivors. The House of Representatives voting 427-1 to approve the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Clay Higgins, again, sole representative to vote against it. Remember to get rid of him. The U.S. House of Representatives voted on the act on November 18th, just before 3 p.m. Trump had stated on November 17, 2025, he would sign the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The act reached the presidential desk on the morning of November 19th. A senior White House official told reporters that the bill will be signed when it gets to the White House in the evening. The White House told reporters that Trump would not appear on camera for the rest of the day, after which Trump announced on Truth Social that he had signed the bill into law. I'm no longer on Truth Social, by the way, because they keep kicking me off. So September 2025, Marist poll surveying 1,400 adult Americans found that 90% of Americans answered that they wanted at least some of the Epstein files released with the victims' names redacted. Among those surveyed, 77% said they wanted all of the Epstein files to be released, 13% wanted some, and 9% were opposed. Additionally, 84% of Democrats and 67% of Republicans and 83% of independents answered that they wanted all of the Epstein files released. And again, this was my and Team America's line in the sand. We have been working influence operations behind the scene. I just met with Team America headquarters yesterday, congratulating them, because this is a win for America and Americans. This is our beginning to return to a virtuous populace, which is what is required for a republic, per John Adams. And so instead of protecting Mossad and CIA and FBI and political hacks, we are actually standing up for protecting children. Little girls who were kidnapped, tortured, raped, and murdered, and buried underneath the now cement tennis courts on Epstein Islands, which I covered a long time ago in detail. And I don't know where all that video has gone, but there were Google Earth video of the graves in the berm. Nobody has ever played tennis there. I believe that was just to cover it up. And I even had film of inside the temple of two pairs of little girls in scanty outfits who were cleaning off a central altar in there. Totally satanic happening there. So that's the big win for America. Congratulations, America. Congratulations to Team America for all of your behind the scenes work on that. We are beginning to return to a virtuous populace. Other very important news is Trump has greenlit CIA operations in Venezuela as a forward strike group enters the Caribbean. Now, someone just sent me a video interview of a Fox News commentator, a former judge, interviewing the Santa Cruz County Sheriff. Santa Cruz is the county where Nogales, Arizona is. I knew the old Santa Cruz County Sheriff, Estrada, very corrupt. And I know the new county sheriff, David Hathaway. He was DEA. He was a snowcapper, but he was very much against Trump's hitting the cigarette boats, saying they can't, the go fast boats, they could never make the shores. It's straight murder. And Venezuela has not done anything to us. And that's not true at all. Venezuela is a transshipment point for the global cabal, and Trump's greenlighting CIA operations in Venezuela means that he is attacking the global cabal. Not cabal, of course, comes from Kabbalists, not the Israeli part of the cabal, but other parts. But Venezuela has become a major transshipment hub for human trafficking, driven by its economic collapse, mass migration, and widespread institutional corruption. Transnational criminal organizations, particularly Tren Aragua, exploit the crisis by trafficking women and girls across Latin America. These networks operate with active or passive complicity of high-level Venezuelan officials, active, I would say, just like Mexico, including members of the National Guard, Coast Guard, security forces, who facilitate the movement and trafficking of victims for financial gain, and of course, drugs as well. And this is the transshipment point that goes on up to the Darien Gap. And also is for all the Chinese infiltrators as well. Reports indicate that Maduro-aligned officials charged between 300 and 400 to allow boats transporting victims to depart for Caribbean islands, particularly Margarita Island. The country's weakened institutions, years of corruption, and lack of oversight have created a permissive environment for trafficking with illegal armed groups, mining gangs, and criminal organizations exploiting vulnerable populations, especially women, children, and indigenous communities. The 2025 Trafficking in Persons report confirms that Maduro regime has not made notable efforts to investigate or prosecute trafficking crimes, including those involving its own representatives, and continues to overlook the forced recruitment of children by armed groups. As a result, Venezuela's trafficking industry generated an estimated $2.6 billion in 2024, with $145 billion coming from the sexual exploitation of Venezuelan migrants in Colombia, Peru, and the U.S. alone. Margarita Island is a center for this. This came up on Team America in Venezuela. It's a significant location for human trafficking. In fact, that may have been in the movie. It might have been Margarita Island. Margarita Island being known as a tourist destination where such exploitations occur. The island has also been linked to international trafficking routes, with Venezuelan women transported by small boats to Caribbean islands like Aruba, Curacao, Trinidad, and Tobago, where they are forced into prostitution. There are reports of organized crime and armed gangs exploiting the region, including the use of Margarita Island for terrorist training by Iran-backed organizations such as Hezbollah. Everybody knows that Hezbollah trains out of there. So the narco terror designation for these Venezuelan gangs is very justified. And of course, I've long said that you cannot do law enforcement operations against paramilitary forces. So I'm disagreeing with Sheriff ex-DEA snowcapper and Supervisor David Hathaway, because there's much more to this. And I think Trump is doing the right thing here as well. So the island status as a tourist destination has made it a focal point for child sex tourism, with victims often recruited from within Venezuela. Additionally, illegal gold mining operations in remote areas of Venezuela, including the near Margarita Islands, have been associated with trafficking, where women and girls are exploited in sex trafficking and children are forced to work in dangerous mining conditions. So this is a hell on earth, and this is the CIA maybe going to do some legitimate work for a change. So the Ford Carrier Strike Group arrived in the Caribbean to counter drug trafficking from Venezuela. President Trump has reportedly approved CIA covert operations in the country. According to people briefed on the matter, CIA operations could lay the groundwork for further military action against Venezuela, and that would be special forces next. As of November, there have been at least 20 military strikes on narco-terrorist vessels out of Venezuela. Now, those are what Hathaway's talking about, criticizing. And yeah, I agree with those. Those are not significant. Those go-fast boats would have to refuel maybe a dozen times before they could ever get to America. They wouldn't survive the high sea operations. It's just mostly a publicity stunt. But that is to draw attention to everything else, because talking about child sex trafficking, women forced into prostitution, how Venezuela is a transshipment point for the global cabal to bring in the dark economy, which is human beings, weapons, and drugs up through the Darien. I'd also like to see him hit the Darien for sure. But we have not seen that yet. But is this a step in the right direction? Yes, in my opinion, it is. So that is very important. Also, there is new information from Candace Owens that FBI, DEA, and Egypt are all in on Charlie's assassination. Owens displayed new information about Egyptian planes at the airport nearest to where Kirk was murdered. Conservative commentator Candace Owens has revealed impactful new information regarding the murder of her friend and political activist Charlie Kirk. During a recent podcast, she went into great detail, I thought, about financial situation of Kirk's organization, that there was an audit going on, that they had been ripping off the organization. And she entitled this podcast Operation Mocking Plane, the Charlie Kirk plot thickens. And Sean Ryan had the head of security on, and the guy was just lying through his teeth. I'll say that, outright, saying that the wound to the neck was a 30-06. The bullet would have disintegrated. Just total lies, and he looked very uncomfortable. And Sean Ryan was just carrying water for him the whole time. No surprise there. Ex-SEAL, ex-CIA Special Activities Division, and they're trying to legitimize and tie up loose ends, but they looked ridiculous. And anybody who knows their stuff, and I'm not even a sniper, but certainly the snipers have already proven that in multiple videos, that that's not what a 30-06 round would do. And so it just goes to show that they are in on it. But Canada's new information shows clearly that the U.S. government, which I've already said is in on it, that was the John Michael Cullen shutdown, DDoS shutdown of all of the iPhone live feeds. That's only a government could do that. That may be what the Egyptian planes were doing there. And of course, John Michael Cullen has disappeared now as well. Owens began by recounting the history of the CIA Operation Mockingbird to suppress media in the wake of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. She then showed clips of other conservative activists criticizing her for questioning the narrative of Kirk's murder. And so it's the same operation. She's exactly right. One of the Egyptian planes Owens mentioned on yesterday's podcast was reportedly turned on its transmitter the day Kirk was killed, and turned on again minutes after he was shot. She added that she had found evidence that 4 rental cars were issued for passengers of Egyptian planes, and these were under diplomatic plates, but they switched the plates. So what does that mean? That means that the government is in on it. That's the dark economy, the diplomatic pouch, dark economy run by the global cabal. So this is clearly an international, intergovernmental assassination. Why Egypt doesn't quite make a lot of sense to me, but you got to look at the emergent evidence and intelligence. She also showed a clip from a YouTuber analyzing Turning Point's finances, claiming it was rife with fraud before his death, and that paychecks were being sent to people who don't exist. Wolves and Finance also claimed that $8.5 million was missing from the organization's paperwork. About a week after the shooting, Owens claimed that Kirk was the subject of an intervention in the Hamptons early this year involving billionaire investor Bill Ackman and Seth Dillon, CEO of the satirical outlet The Babylon Bee. According to Owens, Kirk was offered a ton of money if they would soften or abandon his criticism of Israel. And of course, we've already seen the email text where he said he was abandoning the pro-Israeli stance, and that there were threats made to Charlie. Owens said, characterizing the meeting as coercive effort to control Kirk's position. And that would be, hey, just let us have one last conversation before you guys kill him, is likely what was happening there. So these two Egyptian military planes overlapping with Erica Kirk 73 times were part of a military operation that would tie into Erica's mother being involved with a company that is working for the government intelligence. And Owen said she uncovered flight tracking data showing 2 Egyptian military planes overlapping with Erica international travel on 73 occasions between 2022 and 2025. She also says that on September 10th, when Charlie was shot, one of the planes was briefly powered on at Provo Airport. She shared the make, model, and license plates of these vehicles on the podcast. She also urged the people near Utah Valley to review the pictures. So we will see where this goes. George Webb has a Substack out saying that there was a life insurance payout. And he talks about Erica's Egyptian surveillance planes as well, and how this was to shore up Raytheon Israel's Raphael Golden Dome program. So there's a lot of high level folks and nations with an interest in stopping Charlie. And it looks like all these forces came together to do that, but the corruption makes them incompetent. And so they are revealed. The Egyptian military surveillance plane SUBTT arrived on September 4th before the BYU Stanford football game on September 6th. And George is supposing that that was a test to drop off the drones. The drones, I guess, he's referring to the high-speed drones that John Michael Cullen talked about that had to be government drones, not like normal drones at all, which again, may be why he has been disappeared. probably by the intelligence community. George says the only major event the Rafael drone dome system could have been deployed for in a trial run to capture thousands of license plates and facial scans would be the BYU football game on September 6th. So the stadium event is appropriate for a Rafael drone dome deployment with respect to previous implementations, and a test run before deploying it at UVU for the Charlie Kirk speaking event on the 10th would make sense. So that's pretty sophisticated there, that they ran their test operation, and that's why they were in the country. And all of that seems to fit. What doesn't fit at all is, of course, what the government is saying. And, Patel, if you've seen Bondi and Patel just standing pathetically and just trying to stutter through questions about the Epstein list, they just look absurd. It looks like a comedy routine because everybody knows they are lying. The Sean Ryan thing, that's more sophisticated, and everybody's like, "Oh gosh, Sean's next SEAL, so cool." But I was just saying that the other day when I was on Sarah Westall, because Sarah always likes to talk about the SEALs, and I'm trying to tell her how screwed up the SEALs often are, especially about the John Chapman controversy that I have covered so much. But this is all really good news for us because, again, Team America made it a goal, and I made it a personal goal on the Prather Point to make the Epstein list coming out a line in the sand, a hill to die on. Either we were going to return to a virtuous republic, a virtuous populace, which is requisite for a republic, and beginning to become a godly nation again, or we're going to just cover up the kidnap, torture, rape, and murder of little girls for different intelligence agencies and political figures, CIA, FBI, Mossad, Clinton's, and the Democratic Party. Of course, the Democratic Party is certainly the pedo party, although the Rhino party are the enablers of that. Mike Johnson said all he could do to the bitter end trying to block Massey in this act. That's because Johnson is an American Christian Zionist, and therefore he supports whatever Mossad is wanting to do. So I do see a small chat today on Rumble. I don't see anybody on X, but welcoming your, oh yeah, there they are. I missed those. Okay, let me see. You are on X. Let's see here. Heather reposted. Trump takes aim at state AI laws and draft executive order. Challenging state AI laws. To create an AI litigation task force whose purpose is to sue states in court for passing AI regulations that allegedly violate federal laws governing things like free speech. Well, I'm going to talk about AI here in my new Substack shortly. So that is very timely, Earl Jackson, as you are always. But first, there's a Chinese firm that has bought the insurer for CIA agents as part of $1 trillion spree. While Hegseth is blowing up go-fast boats that could never reach America shores without refueling dozens of times, China quietly continues to execute its unrestricted warfare and thousand talents espionage program. So for years, Washington assumed that China's outbound investment flowed mainly into developing economies hungry for infrastructure money. But as scrutiny tightens across the West, it's becoming clear that Beijing's financial reach extended far deeper into wealthy nations and far earlier than most policymakers realized. In 2016, Jeff Stein, a veteran journalist covering U.S. intelligence agency, received an unusual tip. Right USA, a small insurer that specialized in providing liability coverage coverage for FBI and CIA personnel had been quietly acquired the year before by Fosun Group, Chinese conglomerate with reported ties to Beijing's leadership. Someone with direct knowledge called me up and said, "Do you know that the insurance company that insures intelligence personnel is owned by the Chinese?" So a step back here to understand personal insurance. So I've talked about, I've advocated CCW Safe, which replaced the Armed Citizens Defense Network, which is for civilians. But after 9/11, when the CIA went on its torture program, its waterboarding program, and then they destroyed the tapes, everybody started getting all the CIA tactical agent handlers and case officers and personnel started getting personal liability insurance. It's a different type for federal government employees, and so that's when that came into vogue, and now it's almost a must-have for everybody. And I highly recommend it. For civilians, I'm recommending CCW Safe. I did a show on that as well. But that's what they're talking about here. But the problem with that is the Chinese own the insurance company. So the Chinese state banks helped finance the acquisition, routing 1.2 billion loan through the Cayman Islands to enable Fosun's purchase. The deal violated no U.S. laws. It triggered alarm. Stein's story in Newsweek soon prompted a rare inquiry by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. The Treasury-led interagency panel responsible for policing foreign ownership risks. Within months, Right USA was sold back to American owners. Neither Fosun nor Star Right USA, the new parent, responded to requests for comment. But high-level intelligence officials say the episode was among the cases that pushed the first Trump administration in 2018 to significantly tighten U.S. investment screening, part of a broader shift as the U.S. began rethinking a two-decade-old presumption that Chinese capital posed few national security risks. So what does this mean? This means, of course, that they do not, the government does not understand the unrestricted warfare doctrine that the Chinese launched and declared and then launched after the first Gulf War. And they do not understand the Thousand Talents program because it's fifth generation warfare. It doesn't look like warfare. It doesn't have all the uniforms and the jets, and the government still doesn't get it. They just don't get it. They are just not that smart. They are ambitious people to get their places in the government, but they are not smart people. I've found this to be very true of working with higher government officials. They project themselves as smart and intelligent. They don't even try to say that they're wise, but do they really understand what's going on? No, they do not. But this is, again, after the Chinese watched us win the first Gulf War so quickly. They said, nobody can take the United States head on, so we're not going to. They developed a doctrine. Two Chinese colonels, Air Force colonels, developed a doctrine called unrestricted warfare, which means we're going to take them on every way except kinetically, except militarily, directly. And so I've had to counter so many people talking about Chinese troops in uniform coming in. That's never going to happen because the Chinese realized that they would fail. Yamamoto knew this, said there'd be, after the metrosexual coasts fell, there'd be, an Indian cowboy, biker, redneck, briar, hillbilly, behind every rock. They could never hold the territory. Even if they could take it, they could never hold it. The first thing is, can you take it? The second thing is, can you hold it? And they would never be able to hold it. So the Chinese said, we're not going to try and do that. We need access to this economy. We need access to these lands. And so we are now dependent upon the Chinese. Now, Trump is also fighting that as well. That's the tariff war. Trump is the first and only guy to do anything about the China 20-year unrestricted warfare. The Professor Ping, a Communist Party official, said in 2020, we won a war against the United States. And I agree with him. It was our first fifth-generation war loss. Up until then, we'd only lost fourth-generation wars. So that is, very significant to understand. But clearly, the military-industrial complex isn't interested in this, and it doesn't fall within the conventional parameters because it's fifth-generation war. So But new research suggests that the Wright USA case was not an anomaly, but one instance in a vast global pattern. Yes, it's the unrestricted warfare doctrine being carried out. And they're carrying it out, as I've said, in other countries because it was so successful in the United States now via the Thousand Talents program, where they infiltrate Chinese scientists, students, doctors into everything. And Trump just agreed to bring in 600,000 of them, which is certainly a major loss in the counter to China's unrestricted warfare, which he seems to have limited to the tariff war, if all that makes sense. But China's ability to project financial power abroad is tied to the enormous scale of its domestic banking system, now larger than those of the US, Europe, and Japan combined. Beijing exercises direct control over interest rates and credit allocation, giving it tools few governments possessed. This is the only possibility with very strict capital controls, which no other country could sustain. This would be interesting to talk to Mike Adams about because he's the China expert. I am not, but I'm saying China is in a precarious position. He's saying not that China in itself will ever go away. China, like Russia, like Persia, these are ancient nations. They are going to remain. They've been around a lot longer than the United States. But those governments fall. And again, remember, I think Trump has a secret plan for legacy to overthrow communism in China the way Reagan overthrew communism in the Soviet Union, now Russia. So in the UK, the US, and Netherlands, regulators have derailed or unwound deals over fears that Chinese buyers could access strategically sensitive technologies. In mineral resources, is where the top economic sectors receiving China's state-backed investments. This is from 2000 to 2023, 38%, energy infrastructure, 16%, agriculture, 8%. So this is very crucial to understand that, Trump is fighting the Chinese unrestricted warfare, but on a limited basis and on only according to what he understands. So it doesn't look like my guest is going to show up today, which is not completely a surprise since he is an Israeli and he is ex-IDF paratrooper, although he is an Aramean Christian, which I was looking forward to talking to him about. But having dealt with the Israelis before, I am not actually surprised. So after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's close associate Timu Midindik fled to Israel after allegedly masterminding a $100 million corruption scheme, it appears the Ukrainian public is turning on their leader. Well, they've already turned on their leader. They hate him. The average conscript age now is 40. It is terrible, but it's interesting that this somebody even more corrupt than Zelensky flees to Israel. Of course, Ukraine is often called the new Israel. They've even sent their new Tavor bullpup rifles to the Azov battalion Nazis in Ukraine. Zelensky's popularity is, according to polls, below 20%. I'm not surprised at that at all. On November 10th, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, which are independent of Zelensky's office, announced an investigation into a major corruption case related to the energy sector dubbed Operation Midas. The salacious details saw police raid 70 locations and recover stacks of cash, still with barcodes from the U.S. banks in Mindik's apartment, along with a golden toilet. So if you want to see massive corruption, a golden toilet. Mindik has reportedly fled to Israel amid a probe of his growing influence within the country's lucrative industries and fears that his access was facilitated by his ties to Ukrainian President Zelensky. The two were once business partners, and Mindic's influence had expanded since Zelensky was elected in 2019. Positioned by the CIA, and is no longer the valid president because he suspended elections. He has locked up priests. He has closed churches. He is our latest tyrant, and he's got a bunch of Nazis. But of course, our government now backs racial genocide. That's what's happening in Gaza. Mindic was co-owner of Zelensky's production company, Kvartal 95, named for the comedy troupe that helped catapult the Ukrainian president to fame. That's the one where he's dancing around in high heels and spandex and dressing up as a tranny as well. He's also a relative of Leonid Mindrich, who was arrested by Ukrainian anti-corruption watchdogs in June when he was trying to flee the country. According to local reports, he was charged with embezzling $16 million from an electric power company. And of course, this goes way back to when Trump was trying to get Burisma Ukrainian corruption, and then Pedo Joe bragged about it on video, how he had the Ukrainian investigator fired. And it's on video, and nothing has happened Nothing has happened about that. So it's interesting to see Trump going after segments of the global cabal in Venezuela, because Venezuela being a transshipment point for the dark economy of people, drugs, and weapons up through the Isthmus, through the Darien, and then on up, where he's going after parts of that, but not other parts of it. He's not going after the Kabbalists, Israel, and he's not going after lots of elements of the fifth generation Chinese economic warfare that's going on. Remember, George Floyd was initially stopped from the famous stop because of a $20 counterfeit bill out of China that was part of a $250,000 counterfeit pallet of counterfeit U.S. money. So what's that about? Well, you never heard anything about that because that is economic warfare. And that was totally covered up. So I again think that Floyd was a federal informant that was gotten out of prison early, and the cops were corrupt cops. But that setup was used, both of them were used to create a Maidan type color racist revolution in the United States, which worked for a while and then faded. But kind of disappointed that my guest has not gotten here, so I will not bother to go into that. But since you were asking about Earl Jackson, you were bringing up AI there on X. Let's see here. Whoop. Maybe I can show that. Yeah. So Wired directs U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to create an AI litigation task force whose purpose is to sue states in court for passing AI regulations that allegedly violate federal laws governing things like free speech and interstate commerce. So that is real interesting and very significant. And let me jump into that with my latest Substack. And this is a paid one. So if you want to get this, you're going to have to sign up for this. But ChatGPT and SYNBIO, same scientism script. ChatGPT's hallucination problem. Study finds that more than half of AI's references are fabricated or contain errors. A Deakin University study of mental health literature reviews found that ChatGPT fabricated roughly 1 in 5 academic citations, with more than half of the citations, 56%, being either fake or containing errors. The AI's accuracy varied dramatically by topic. Depression citations were 94% off, while binge eating disorder and body dysmorphic disorder saw fabrication rates nearly 30%, suggesting less studied subjects face higher risks. Among fabricated citations that included 64% linked to real but completely unrelated papers. That is, the citations went to the real papers, but they were not relevant to what ChatGPT was saying, not hallucinations. So they're calling these hallucinations. They're just lying. These are lies from AI. And I will explain what that means here. So mental health researchers using AI tools need to verify every citation manually, and journals should strengthen safeguards to prevent fabricated references. Well, we already know during the COVID pandemic that the Western journal publications systems, the Lancet and all of them, and I look at those all the time because of my competitive intelligence work in GRIN, Genetics, Robotics, Information, Nanotechnology, requires me to read tens of thousands of those pages every month. We already know that those have been completely corrupted. So is it a surprise that AI is corrupted? No, not at all. Not for me anyway. But, I was pointing that out way back. This article is saying mental health researchers relying on ChatGPT need to speed up their work, should take note of an unsettling find from Australian researchers. The AI chatbot gets citations wrong or invents them outright more than half the time. The AI, so my commentary, my Substack, the AI's foibles and failures reflect back its creator's own. ChatGPT's worldview filter inherently incorporates its founder's bias. ChatGPT was created by OpenAI, an artificial intelligence research laboratory founded in 2015 by a group of prominent figures, including Sam Altman, Elon Musk, and Peter Thiel, to name a few. Thiel is obsessed with the Antichrist and loves to lecture Ivy Leaguers, although he disdains them because he didn't graduate from college. Like Google's old motto, "Don't do evil," the sentence subject is, of course, evil. Just as Thiel's lectures don't focus on Christ, but on Antichrist. All AIers operate off of false assumptions. Their worldview completely ignores humankind's fallen nature. Not the same as the heretical doctrine of original sin, by the way, which encompasses Gene Roddenberry's false premise of war and racism are caused by poverty as opposed to human greed and hate. This makes the entire enterprise corrupt at the root of the knowledge tree. Scientism is the new American state religion. PhDs are the new high priests. Fads of directed evolution and death as a disease are seriously contemplated in these intellectual sterile corridors of power. Evolution, of course, is a theory and has never been proven, but long now and often disproven. But in the fake faith of scientism, it is still gospel in universities and laboratories. Almost all of you reading here are familiar with my public persona as America's intelligence officer on the Prather Point. But since 2014, my real income producing job has been as a competitive intelligence consultant in the GRIN, Genetics, Robotics, Information, Nanotechnology space. I help the good guys navigate the GRIN market space by providing strategic over-the-horizon human intelligence, human analysis, and projections. Because my analysis is based upon substantiated truth such as humankind's fallen nature, and as a result, expected bad behavior, my projections have been lauded as revelatory repeatedly. For example, early on, I assessed, due to the furin cleavage, that COVID was manufactured purposefully. This baseline conclusion differed radically from the multitude of scientism publications and allowed me to show my clients a very different worldview than the one presented via fake news and scientism scripts. Many scientists I know and respect and work with could simply not conceive that such institutional evil could be the culprit, despite the clear scientific evidence and the massive historical proofs of exactly such murderous behavior in the past. Scientists are not immune from cognitive dissonance. Far from it. They are, in fact, for the most part, addicted to it, both financially, emotionally, and philosophically. I have of late run across the latest massive made-up medicine show of the scientism scammers, synthetic biology, SYNBIO. Synthetic biology is called a multidisciplinary field of science that focuses on living systems and organisms. It applies engineering principles to develop new biologic parts, devices, and systems, or to redesign existing systems found in nature. It is a branch of science that encompasses a broad range of methodologies from various disciplines, such as biochemistry, biotechnology, biomaterials, material science engineering, genetic engineering, molecular biology, molecular engineering, systems biology, membrane science, biophysics, chemical and biological engineering, electrical and computer engineering, control engineering, and evolutionary biology. Note the false assumption placed last. From the incorrect, they move on to the outrageous. It includes designing and constructing biological models, biological systems, and biological machines, or redesigning existing biological systems for useful purpose. So when they say for useful purpose, they are implying implicitly that the systems that exist are not useful. But somehow in their hubris, the systems they don't really understand, they are going to make them useful. What is that doing? Well, they're trying to, for example, implanting a baby, inside a man, or whatever they are doing to modify nature. And yet, science has never created once a single cell ever, because one cell is way too complicated. It has tiny little micro machines doing all kinds of different things. This is not what Darwin thought, because Darwin didn't have those good of microscopes back then. So Darwinism has been disproven with increased microscopes. His whole concept of evolutionary biology does not work. And of course, there are no transitional australopithecines. That's the missing link that is still missing and will always be missing, because it is phony. Science has never created a single cell because they cannot, because they are not the creator. They are creatures of the creator in the creation. So they will never, being in the creation, not beyond it, they will never be able to create, but they won't admit that. Yet this pseudoscience claims to create entire systems. But the next line then reveals the lame reality of truth in designing existing systems. The hubris is almost inconceivable, if not for our fallen nature, of course. I'm seriously considering sending my scientist associates a copy of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein for Christmas. But synthetic biology's true purpose matches ChatGPT's. Establish a false baseline for further institutionalized falsehoods, lies. The research doesn't have to be right. That is too difficult, complicated, subtle, and requires discernment. It just has to mirror match the make-believe medicine show of scientism. Or maybe I'll just send them a copy of George Orwell's 1984. In it, the Ministry of Truth, known in Newspeak as Mini-True, is one of 4 ministries in the totalitarian state of Oceania. The ministry is responsible for falsifying historical records, producing propaganda, and controlling all forms of information, including news, entertainment, education, and the fine arts. Sounds like AI. It is described as an enormous pyramid-shaped structure of white concrete, 300 meters tall, with the three-party slogans, "War is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength," inscribed on its face. The building is said to contain 1,000 rooms above ground, an extensive network of underground chambers. Sounds like DARPA ARDA as well, doesn't it? Just as non-binary isn't, artificial intelligence isn't, and synthetic biology isn't, the gap created by non-binary synthetic biology bull like AI can be then exploited by an ancient non-corporal sentience that thrives on substituting falsehood for faith. And he did not stand in the truth because the truth is not in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks it from his own self, for he is a liar and the father of lies. John 8:44. And that is my latest Substack. And so I am glad, Earl Jackson, you brought that up. So remember, well, I don't see any questions there. I guess that's it. Let me see. Let me refresh and make sure before I wrap up here. Nope. Yep. A quiet day today. So we don't always win, but we did today. But we always learn more in defeat, and winning is difficult, demanding, and always expensive. We can and will win if we commit. The most committed wins. That's what we just proved with this win. So define what you're willing to fight, kill, and die for. We are behind enemy lines in our own country against our own government. The faithful versus the fakes. Reset versus resistance. Parents versus pedos. God is not with us, but we are with God. Tyrants always fall. Tyranny always fails. Graphene is not in our DNA, but freedom is. But freedom is never given. It is earned. It is fought for. It is won. It is taken. So take it.